Om 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 Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Bole Shri Sadgurunath Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidwaram Sadgurum Brahma Vidwaram. Om Shri Chinmaya Sadgurave Namaha. Namah Shri Shankarananda Gurupadambu Janmane Savilasa Mahamoha Graha Grasaika Karmane. Hari Om. Welcome to this last evening for this previous month, for the month of February, which is extended up to today. The talks on Tripti Dipa as part of the Vedanta Shravana Sadhana Yagna, chapter 7 of Panchadashi by Swami Vidyaranya. This is a very beautiful, very enlightening, and very enlivening chapter. It is called On Self-Realization. The Guru is now taking up a very, very, very subtle topic of how exactly the self-realization takes place. It is actually like the theory of knowledge. We should know how we know. We should know what we know. And we should also know how we know what we know. So that is explained in this chapter very beautifully. We will see that it is very intricate, it is very subtle, but at the same time, it is enjoyable and it is revealing too. Swaprakashopi sakshyeva dhivritya vyapyatenyavat phalavyapyatvamevasya shastrakrit bhirnivaritam swaprakashaha api. Even though that consciousness is self-illumining, self-shining, sakshi eva, that witnessing consciousness, dhivritya vyapyate anyavat, dhivritya vyapyate. By the thoughts of the intellect, it is objectified. This witnessing consciousness, even though it is self-illumining and self-shining, it is objectified by dhi vritti, or the thought in the intellect, vyapyate, anyavat, like other objects of knowledge also. Like other objects of knowledge means the objects of knowledge that we see, hear, taste, smell and touch are covered by this dhi vritti or thoughts. It is known. How do I know this? How do I know this is an idol of Ganesha? I see it, I know it as a thought in my mind. Dhi vritya. Vritti means a thought. Dhi vritya anyavat, like other objects, vyapyate. This sakshi, witnessing consciousness, is covering this reflection in the form of a thought in the intellect. It is objectified. An object, a thought is an object. This witnessing conscious is also objectified as a thought in the mind. Phalavyapti atvam, illumination by reflection. Chidabhasa. the thought in the mind, any other object thought is illuminated by the reflection of consciousness or Chidabhasa. Because any other object thought is inert, basically. All matter, the thought of matter, matter does not have life in it. So when we have the thought of matter in our intellect, that thought is inert and it has to be energized by reflection of consciousness. In other words, life. It has to be energized by life. Chidabhasa, reflection of consciousness. Asya. Shastrakritbhihi nivaritam. However, the fact that the idea that the subject or consciousness has to be illumined by this reflection of consciousness or light. It's a very beautiful, very intricate and very subtle idea, thought. The fact that consciousness, self, I, has to be illumined by reflection of consciousness, which is life, has been denied by Sadbihi, Shastrakritbihi, by the masters of the scriptures. It's very beautiful. So here the thoughts are self-shining, witnessing consciousness. I, self-shining, witnessing consciousness. This I is made into an object by the thoughts in the intellect. How is the I made into an object? The thoughts in the intellect make the I, which is self-shining consciousness, into an object. Just like any other object in the intellect. Vritti is object. Vritti is a thought which is object. However, it's illumination by the reflection of consciousness. The self-witnessing thought is illumined by the reflection of consciousness. This aspect is denied by people who have the masters of the scriptures. So the question, why is it here it's important? When we say I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not the intellect, we are denying all this. I am only that consciousness self. But when the intellect is also given up, the reflection of consciousness also will be given up. It will disappear. Like when the sun is reflected in the water, when the water is taken out of the bucket, the sun's reflection will not be there in the water. So the reflection of the sun will also disappear. When the intellect is, when the power of the thought is thrown out, then the reflection of consciousness as life will also not be there. Then how will we know I am the truth? For knowing I am the truth, is life required in the body? Is life or reflection of consciousness, is life required in the thought to know that I am the witnessing consciousness self? See, the body life is required because the body's functions are sustained by life. But in this thought that I am the witnessing consciousness, does it need to be illumined by life, or can it be illumined by life? Like when the water is removed from the bucket, the water which was reflecting the light of the sun has been thrown out of the bucket. Now the sun's light is there, but there is no reflection in the water. It can be reflected in the bucket, but there is no reflection in the water. Now, does the sun need the reflection in the bucket to illuminate? That is a question here. Does the sun in the sky need this reflection in the bucket to illuminate? Don't we know that the sun is there just because of its presence everywhere? Do we need to look into the bucket and say, no, this Sun was reflected, the sun's light was reflected in the bucket. Now there is no water in the bucket. So the reflection is not there. So the sun is not there. Do we say that? The same thing is here. In this thought, consciousness is the sun, which is I, the self. This body is the bucket. The intellect is the water. The intellect is the water. The reflection is the vritti. The reflection of the sun is the vritti or the wave in the water. Now, to know that suppose the mind is not there. You say you transcend the mind, you transcend the intellect. You cannot know with the mind, you cannot know with the intellect. So we have removed the water from the bucket. There is no water, there is no wave, there is no reflection. You fill the water again in the bucket. And now the reflection is there. The sun was there first when the water was there. The sun was there when the water was removed. Now again you fill the bucket with water, the sun is there. For the third time, if you have to see the sun, do you need this reflection of water to see the sun? Can't we see the sun directly by ourselves? In the same way, this consciousness is there, witnessing consciousness, I, the self is there. The body is here. The prana is there. Prana is the water. In the prana, this vritti or the intellect, steady thought of the sun is there in this prana in this water of prana. The steady thought as a vritti of the reflection of the sun is there. Of the reflection of the consciousness is there in the form of a steady thought. Intellect is nothing but a steady thought. In that steady thought, completely the light of consciousness is reflected. That is why for anything we want to achieve anything, we need to make our mind steady. When we make our mind steady, the consciousness or the light of consciousness is reflected completely in the mind, that we have complete clarity over the subject of what we need to do. We will make no mistakes. We will make no error. We will be like that sharp razor which can cut and slice through anything and just destroy any ignorance that is there. The mind will become so subtle and so sharp. So only so much the mind is required. The mind and the intellect are required only so far. Puja Gurudev gives a very beautiful example when somebody asked Gurudev, do I need the mind and intellect to know the self? You say the self cannot be known with the mind and the intellect. Then why do I need the mind or the intellect to know the self? Can I just do away with it? So Gurudev says, how did you come for this yagna? I came by car. Are you still inside the car, with the car in this room? Are you sitting here with the car? What did you do with the car? No, I parked the car outside and I walked into this place. In the same way, you come so far with the help of the mind and intellect. Intellect is clear thought, nothing more. It is just clear, steady thought. You came so far with the intellect, you park the thought outside and enter into the truth. Walk into the truth. There's nothing more to be spoken or said. The other example Gurudev gives is pole vaulting. The person who is doing the pole vaulting, he has to jump very high. So normally without any support, we will not be able to jump so high. We will jump only to the level of a hurdle. The hurdles are kept in the running race. You call it hurdles. So the normal human being, the normal sportsman with all his abilities can only jump over the hurdle, shoot the leg and jump the other side and continue running. Hurdle. But if you want to jump a very extraordinary height, like that big pole, you take a pole vault stick, a very big stick. You run with that pole vault stick. You pitch that stick on the ground. You see the Olympics races, you will see pole vaulting. You pitch it on the ground. You climb up the stick. You jump the other side. You don't jump with the stick. You drop the stick on this side and jump comfortably onto the cushioned bed on the other side. The same way, to enter into consciousness, you run with the mind, you work with the mind, you walk with the mind, you talk with the mind and the intellect, which means the mind is unclear thoughts, doubting thoughts, unsteady thoughts is the mind. Steady thought is the intellect. The pole vault stick also is very unsteady. It is a wavy, it's not a very firm stick. It is very, very wavy. But when he's pitching it, it becomes very firm. And then it is flexible also. He jumps the other side, the stick bends, and the pole vaulter bends and jumps over the other side so beautifully. In the same way, you come running with the mind. You pitch it steadily like the intellect, the thought of Brahman. You pitch that thought steadily like the intellect. You climb over that thought and you gently jump on the other side and fall into the luxurious lap of Brahman. After which you don't need to do anything. You won the game. You won the race. What is the race you won? You won the race of self-realization. The game is over. The game, all games are over in this world the moment realization happens. After that, life is just a game. You can go around playing around with people. You can play around with situations. Of course, when a realized master is playing, he is not going to play with the intention or the cruelty or the cunningness of an ordinary human being in this world who is attacked by competition, jealousy, envy, pride, anger, hatred. These qualities are not there in the master. But life is there, master will play. And he will play a very lovely game. The game he will play is to make everybody else realize like him. There's a very beautiful verse in Tirumandiram. Yan petra inbam perugai vaiyagam தான் பற்றி நின்ற மறை பொருள் கண்டிடின் ஊன் பற்றி நின்ற உணர்வுரு மந்திரம் தான் பற்ற பற்ற தலைபடும் தானே. யான் பெற்ற இன்பம் பெருக இவ்வையகம். I have realized the joy of the self. I have fallen into the lap of the self. There is nothing more that I need. There is nothing more that I want to know. There is nothing more that I want to enjoy. I've been wrapped with the love of the self. I've been wrapped with the blanket of the self around me. I am like that small baby that is being nursed and cradled by the self. I've realized I've reached such kind of a joy in life where I want nothing. Yan petra inbam. Peruga vaiyagam. Let this whole world enjoy that. Van patri nindra. There is a samarai purul. There is a hidden object. What is that hidden object? It is a thought. Where is the thought? It is holding on to the space. This thought is holding on to the space. What is this thought? This thought is the mantra. Un patri nindra. It is also holding on to the body. This thought is holding on to the body. This thought is holding on to the space. Un is the physical body. Everything is being kept alive by this mantra. Un patri nindra. Unarvuru mandiram. Unarvu uru. This mantra, Om, has got consciousness in it. This mantra, Om, is not an inert object. This mantra Om is alive with consciousness. Patti nilra unarvuru mandiram taan patra patra. As much as you hold on to this mantra, taan patra patra, talai padum tane. Talai means the head. The head will bow down. The head will fall. Where will the head fall? Head means the presence of life, the presence of living force, the presence of this consciousness in the body, mind, and intellect is the head, the thinking head, the head that is alive with life, thinking, planning, organizing, fighting, talking, walking, eating, sleeping. That is the head, the individual ego of Rajas and Tamas. Talai padum tane means this Rajas and Tamas will fall down. This life will merge into the self and surrender finally. It's a very, very beautiful mantra, one of the 3000 mantras in Tirumandiram. But that beautifully explains this aspect of this. Here, there are two things that are being spoken of, phalavyapti and vrittivyapti. We will see what they are. For example, there are two steps to know something. In knowing any object, whether it's a gross object, whether it is a subtle object, whether it is an emotion, or whether it is a thought, there are two steps. The one step is perception of that object, tadakara vritti. So here is usually they say ghatakara. There is a ghatam behind. A ghatam is a pot. But there is no pot here. There is a chashakaha. So we will say chashakakara vritti. Chashaka means tumbler. There is a tumbler in front of me and I open my eyes. There is light around the tumbler. There is life in me. Life force is there. The light of consciousness is witnessing this life force expressing through the eyes, falling on the tumbler, covering the tumbler completely, and this tumbler knowledge is there in my mind as a thought. And this witnessing consciousness, which is the subject, is witnessing the tumbler thought. Chashakakara vritti. Vritti means thought in the mind. The witnessing consciousness is witnessing this tumbler thought in the mind. Very, very simple. Tumbler thought, illumined by light, illumined by life within. Because there is life only, I am able to see. If there is no life, I won't even able to lift my finger to move towards the tumbler. So that the life force is there. The life force is falling on this tumbler, coupled with the light around the tumbler, the object. Light around the object also is there. Now this thought in my mind is inert. Because the tumbler is inert, it does not have any illumination of its own. This thought also will be inert. The thought has to be illumined by the reflection of consciousness, which is life. The reflection of consciousness, like fire, joins with this tumbler thought that is like iron ball, and the iron ball and the fire merge together. The fire takes the shape of the iron ball, and the iron ball has the color of fire, has the color and movement of fire. The fire takes the shape and stillness of the iron ball. So this is called tadatmyam. It happens in the intellect, and I, the witnessing consciousness, through the reflection of consciousness, the power of reflection of consciousness, witness this tumbler thought. Witness this chashakakara vritti. Okay. Now, this is tadakara vritti, or seeing the object as it is. Now, this is called vritti vyapti. The object is only covering my consciousness. My consciousness is not going all out to cover the object and pull it and keep it here. The very presence of this object is reflecting in consciousness, and I am having a vritti vyapti. I am being covered. The vritti is covering, or vritti is covering this consciousness. And what is this vritti vyapti thought? The tadakara vritti, what does it, the any thought has only one role to play. The thought removes ignorance. Any thought I have in my mind, if we understand this, many problems in our life will be solved very easily. What does a thought do? A thought removes ignorance. Whatever thought I have in my mind, the thought is present to remove the ignorance of something. Simple as that. You just apply this in any of your day-to-day activities, you will appreciate the beauty of this. What is the role of the vritti vyapti thought? The vritti vyapti thought removes the ignorance of the object. I don't know what is this object. When I get the thought of this object, the thought says, this is a tumbler. I means this body. This body cannot understand anything. The mind which is associated with the body is inert. It cannot understand anything. This thought appears in the intellect, and only the intellect will give knowledge of what is that object. Okay? So there is a witnessing consciousness I, and the intellect I know, and the thought which is the object. I plus I know plus object is equal to vritti vyapti. The step 2 is called phala vyapti. Now, this thought is there in my mind. If I don't take cognizance of it, the thought will go away. But what do I do within? There is life force present, and that life force it blesses the thought with its life energy, and I, the witnessing consciousness, cognize the thought as chashakaha, as a tumbler. This is called phala vyapti. So the I is there, the life force, so the reflection of consciousness falls on that vritti, and I identify that thought, I recognize that thought, I know that thought as a tumbler. This is, if we really understand this and we appreciate this, this is so beautiful. There's nothing as beautiful as this sentence. The beauty of Vedanta is being brought by these verses of Swami Vidyaranya. There is nothing more that can be said. So here, to make understanding easy, I read from what Pujya Guruji, Swami Tejomayananda ji, has mentioned here. Think of an ant and think of an elephant. Even though the thought takes the form of an ant and an elephant, the thought does not become small like an ant or big like an elephant. The thought occupies the same space. It is just one flash in the intellect. What is a thought? A thought is a flash in the intellect. There are 2 steps involved in knowing any object, be it a gross one or a subtle emotion or a concept. These steps appear to be identical, but they are not so. Step 1, there are 2 steps. To know anything, there are 2 steps. What is the one step? Step 1 is the perception or the ideation of the object as a thought modification in the form of the object. Tadakara vritti, Tumblerakara vritti, Chashakakara vritti. Tumbler is there, this thought is there in my mind. Tadakara. What akara, what form? The form of the tumbler. I get the thought in my mind. For example, when we see a pot, a thought is in the form of a pot. Ghatakara vritti arises in our intellect as the thought is, it is a pot. What is the role of this thought? The function of this is to remove the ignorance of the object. I don't know what object it is. Now I know that it is a pot. This is technically called vritti vyapti. Step 2 of knowing anything. Knowing, and step 2, I know. That is, I am just not seeing, I know it. I am aware of it. I am conscious of it. Conscious of what? Conscious of the cup. Conscious of the tumbler. Conscious that it is my tumbler. It contains water that I have to drink. So much of consciousness is there in this. Awareness. I know. It is a tumbler. This is the task of the reflection of consciousness. This thought is there in my intellect, in my mind. Now the reflection of consciousness in the intellect falls on this thought in my mind, and I have a very clear thought that it is my tumbler. I take ownership of it. I acknowledge its presence. I know the contents of it. So this is made possible by the reflection of consciousness or Chidabhasa in the intellect. This is technically called phalavyapti. Phalavyapti means this thought is there and there is a power called Chidabhasa in the intellect. That power grasps this thought and absorbs the thought into me and integrates the thought into my being as an understanding, as a knowledge. So beautiful it is. This is technically called phalavyapti. Knowledge cannot take place without either of these functions of the intellect and the reflection of consciousness. We will not have any knowledge without these two steps. These two steps are very important. The vritti vyapti is very important. If I read from this book, these letters fall in my mind as vritti. Tadakara vritti. What akara? Shlokakara vritti. And then the reflection of consciousness, it is only from tamas. This book is an object. This printed matter is an object. But the letters are all live. The letters, which are sounds, are alive with life. When they fall, even though I don't know the meaning, I'm ignorant of the meaning, but the light of consciousness falls on those letters and the meaning is being given, explained, reflection of consciousness through the guru, through the shastras, through the printed matter that explains every verse. All this is reflection of consciousness expanding upon the 2 lines of shlokas. Because of all that, I am able to, and the reflection of consciousness is there. The light of consciousness falls on those words and the meaning of those words, and I understand it, I own it, I accept it, I appreciate it. It is of course understood that the capacity of knowing in the reflection of consciousness is from pure consciousness. Where does this capacity come? We say reflection of consciousness is falling on that thought. Where does that power come? That power comes from consciousness. That power comes from the self. The power comes from I. That is why we say, whatever the circumstance you may be in, whatever the difficulty you may be in, never put yourself down, never be let down, never droop, never struggle, never feel sad, never feel sorry. I am always there. I am present. That is why all the gods, they say, don't worry when I am here. The gods are all showing this. Don't worry. Why worry when I am here? Why fear when I am here. Shraddha, Saburi. In Tamil they ask, Ya Amerika Bhayam. Why are you afraid when I am there? Who is talking all this? Consciousness is talking all this. Consciousness does not talk, but through the words of the Guru, through the words of the scriptures, through the words of the Master, the consciousness speaks and says, why worry when I am here? Shraddha, Saburi, have faith. I am here. Don't worry, my dear. I am here for you at all times. The devotee is being reassured by Bhagavan many times. Name bhaktaha pranashyati. Who says that? Consciousness is saying through the words of the Guru, Bhagavan Shri Krishna and Vedavyasa, Name bhakta pranashyati. We should not understand Vedanta only in the light of knowledge. We should understand Vedanta in the light of bhakti, in the light of devotion. Only then that knowledge becomes our own. Only then we can own up the knowledge. We can live in that knowledge. We can revel in that knowledge. We can bask in that knowledge. I thought I'll be finishing many verses today, but I'm just here with 2 verses because when we study them or when we contemplate on them, we may have our own thoughts, but when we are speaking on them, that consciousness is present here while I speak these words, or while I struggle to speak these words, while I struggle to convey these thoughts, which is being so easily and so beautifully mentioned by the masters like Swami Vidyaranya and Pujya Guruji, Pujya Gurudev. Whenever they say it is so easy, so simple. But when we have to study, when we have to understand, when I have to speak, I wonder it is not so easy. What am I going to do? And I think that I will speak this, I will do this. And when I switch on the screen and I sit before, I don't know why something else happens. It looks like somebody else is speaking all this. Not me, but you. In the waking dream and dream state, the thoughts are of objects, gross and subtle. However, in the deep sleep state, the thought is of absence of object. That thought modification, which takes the form of the absence of object, is called sleep, says the Yoga Sutra. Puja Guruji here points out, he quotes from the Yoga Sutra, Abhava Pratyaya Alambana Vrittir Nidra. Abhava Pratyaya. Abhava Pratyaya means no thought, absence of an object. There is no object. Alambana, holding on to that thought, that the Phalavyapti, that is the consciousness illumining the absence of thought is called sleep, according to the Yoga Sutra. Generally, it is believed that there are no thoughts in deep sleep, but without a thought, we would not remember the next morning that we slept well and did not experience anything in sleep. Here also, it is a reflection of consciousness that knows and the consciousness that illumines. So here there are only 2 things. What are the 2 things in life that finally we come to? One is consciousness and the other is life or reflection of consciousness. This is the duality that we are talking about. This is the duality that we need to transcend. And when we transcend this duality, this life merges with consciousness. The reflection of consciousness has got no separate role to play other than realization of the self. When the self is realized, the reflection of consciousness just merges with that self in that individual. Hence, even in deep sleep state, knowledge of absence takes place due to vritti vyapti and phala vyapti. Vritti vyapti means the thought, the absence thought in the state of sleep removes the present thought. Presence thought. We have, when we are awake, we have a thought of presence. What is the presence? Of reflection of consciousness. We have the thought of the presence of reflection of consciousness in our waking state. When we go to sleep, the absence thought removes the ignorance of the absence thought. The absence thought removes our ignorance of what thought it is. It removes the ignorance of what is this thought. When is that? When do we realize that? When we get up in the morning. When we get up in the morning, we say, we don't say when we are sleeping, but when we wake up, we say, I slept very well. I did not know anything. The reflection of consciousness is illumining that thought that I did not know anything. In other words, the other expression of the thought is I slept very well. I slept very well is the other side of the thought, the ignorant side of the thought. The conscious side of the thought is I did not know anything. Always in consciousness, the thought that faces consciousness will be conscious, and the thought that is away from consciousness will be unconscious. Just like the earth is there, when the earth is facing the sun, it will be bright. When the earth is away from the sun, it will be darkness. Here, the earth is the thought. When the thought is facing consciousness, it will be bright. When the thought is away from consciousness, it will be dark. So I conclude this month session of Vedanta Shravana Sadhana with a deep prayer that as we proceed into the study of this beautiful text called Tripti Dipa, may Ishvara's grace, may the Guru's grace, and may our Atma Kripa permit us to realize the true self or bask in these words of knowledge from Swami Vidyaranya. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasorma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Bole Shri Sadgurunath Maharaj Ki Jai. Har Namah Parvati Pataye. Har Har Mahadeva. Hari Om.